Welcome to Commander Pop Culture, a place to gather magical information with some laughs, might I add. Murders at Karlov Manor. Set officially releases February 9th. The official start date for spoiler season is tomorrow. I'm just going to be covering all the pre-season spoilers before I start releasing everything on a daily basis. So I know you're all here for spoilers, so we're going to get into that first. Crushing Footballs. It's getting a full art treatment and a special guest option. Mostly a 60 card deck kind of card. Play it in modern or more eternal formats because no one's actually suspending this card for 4 turns. People are just cheating this into play with stuff like Cascade and Discover, and that's how you break cards like these.
Why didn't I think of that?
This is not the first, but there's actually many cards that have suspend that those decks are breaking outside of just Crashing Footfalls. It's $4 price range just because you're putting 8 power with evasion into play. It's a significant amount because in 60 card formats, there's more common to have a lot of cards that trade 1 for 1. This forces people to trade 2 for 1 because you're making 2 rhinos with significant stat blocks. And that's why it's priced at $4 right now. It'll get a little lower, but not too much because I think this card sees a lot of play in formats outside of EDH. Rakdos, Patron of Chaos, part of the core set, and what it does is at the beginning of your end step, target opponent may sack 2 non-land, non-token permanents. If they don't, you draw 2 cards. The way you play this properly is you pick the weakest person in your table, and you want that draw trigger every single time. Basically, you'll further your lead, and you'll get what you want. There's this version, and then there is this weird city version, and there's going to be a guild version of this card. So the guild versions will have these like special foiling, and they'll have like stamps or handwriting notes on them. Every set now there's like a special foil, and this is the version that they're going with. Aurelia Law Above. My first thoughts about this card is that it's not as great as you would think it would be. It has the trifecta of Flying Vigilance, Haste, 4/4. And then I think most people are drawn to the card advantage piece and the lightning helix effect. It facilitates that goal of going wide in Boros. I just don't know if it's really worth it. It cares about when any player attacks with 3 or more creatures. That's, I feel like, incredibly easy for your opponents to play around. It's not like Mangara. Mangara has better draw triggers on it for cheaper mana and an easier casting cost of just being, 1 color. The only person that's probably gonna be triggering this is you. So if you're playing this for the card advantage piece, there's cheaper options in red and white. You're slugging all of your opponents, so you're dealing 9 to gain 3 back. But at that point, if you're attacking with 5 or more creatures, you should be probably ending the game or being close to ending the game. That's like the other subject matter I wanted to bring up. It's the state of the game. Commander, it's either you're winning by non-combat damage means, which is probably the more popular because it's consistent and safe to go about that. Winning by combat is a lot riskier. It's a lot harder to do nowadays. The decks that do it, they pretty much could finish everybody off with that amount of creatures attacking. Let's think about like Jetmir, for instance. The moment you reach that threshold where you give all the anthems and all of the keywords, and you attack with that many creatures, the game pretty much ends right then and there. You're getting a very medium effect for attacking with a bunch of creatures. But in truth be told, you're probably going to be finishing off everybody when you're attacking with that many anyways.
You certainly don't need it.
Talking about a price, it's going for 15 at pre-order. This card is probably going to be a bulk rare based on like all the things I mentioned about this card before. And there's just better Boros commanders out there that do everything this card wants to do. You draw cards for cheaper, and you deal out tons of damage for cheaper. There is the Cityscape version. Serialized cards are coming back. All the guild leaders are getting 250 serialized versions, and this is the special foiling version. Alquist, Prof Master Sleuth. He basically has an Azor trigger, only you're not required to attack with it, which is a lot nicer. And he's a 3/3 with Vigilance. That's pretty sweet stat block and keyword for 3 mana. I don't mind this card at all. If you're making clues pretty consistently, you basically turn your clues into just mana sinks. So I really like this card a lot. in terms of design and just taking parts of old school cards that don't see love anymore, here it is. You see how it's like written all over the card and random doodling. I don't care for it. I'm pretty sure someone else out there does. Lead Pipe, a Murder at Markov Manor bundle, and then there's going to be a Murder at Markov bundle Clue Edition. You can only get these in the Clue Edition and I think in the collector packs. Expect all the weapon representations to be there. Like you could already see it in the background. The candlestick, there's the rope and the wrench, and I don't see the gun or the knife anywhere. Maybe those will get representations and the background changes. But what it does is equip creature +2/+0. And whatever equipped creature dies, each opponent loses a life. And it also acts like a clue because it has clue in its subtype. That's kind of nice. If you ever getting stuffed out by a very cluttered board, this card has something to give to you, and that's to replace itself. Wojak Investigator. Flying Vigilance, 2/4 for 3. To maybe your upkeep, you investigate for once for each opponent has more cards in hand than you. That's kind of nice. White's like classic story. They can't just put raw card advantage on there. They have to put some kind of like hoop on it that you have to jump through. Like, I don't know why Wizards does this. They have to inconvenience you by forcing you to pay 2 mana to see that card. Essentially, but it's a nice little rebound mechanic. It's just a little bit of a sluggish one. I imagine this gets play in mono white decks or in clue decks because you could probably generate a ton of clues off this. Card advantage is king and everyone's playing it. The likelihood of people having more than you is pretty good. Hull Fountain, this just got a reprint in Ravnica Remastered. This is the, again, the clue version. It has a set symbol with the C on it, so it's only gonna be in those bundle packs and the collectors. I like the art. There's someone in the bath and there's a shadow of someone with a knife.
Crept back behind him and do it! Will you stop that? No. Then he's running to the top!
Ravnica Remastered down to single digits. Hell yeah, we want to see that. I would like it to get to $5 or less so I can start featuring shocks on my channel. I play decks on a budget, so people that are interested in the commanders that I try, people can afford the deck to play themselves. Seam Vents, you get one for $10. It might get a little lower, but not much because you can only get these in the clue and collectors, like I said. Commander Mustard, I'm sorry about the resolution. This guy's really sick. He gives all your soldiers the trifecta of Vigilance, Trample, and Haste.
There is safety in numbers, my dear.
That's pretty awesome. For 4 mana, soldiers you control gain whenever this creature attacks, deal 1 damage to the defending player. I would play this over Aurelia any day of the week. I just love what it does. What's kind of interesting, there is a colon next to the mana investment. I think you can stack the ability if you have that much mana just lying around. Say you got a bunch of Smothering Tide tokens you want to dump into this multiple times, and then whenever your soldiers attack, you could do multiple damage when they attack. I mean, there's plenty of other ways in Boros to make infinite mana. If you have excess mana from doing like the Feast and Famine plus Aggravated Assault, you could just sink it into this ability. If you already have access to infinite combat steps, what do you really need to be shipping people away with the activated ability here? Who knows which scenario that would come in handy for, but it's there. I think it's just a good sync if you have nothing else better to do. So you'll always be doing something in your games with this guy. Dining Room, this is going to be part of the clue sets. I don't know if they're going to have all 10 represented. I imagine so, since the Shocklands are all getting their representations. It's only fitting that we get all of these lands that can investigate themselves. Also part of the clue set, Senator Peacock. Artifacts control are clues in addition to their other types, and then they have the same activated ability. Whenever you sack a clue, target creature can't be blocked this turn. I kind of like the evasion on the bottom of this, and I like that you could turn dead artifacts into sacrifice fodder. Say you have a Pithing Needle, the target that you originally selected died, it's officially just a dead card sitting on your board. You could use it to replace itself, and I like the value in that. So that covers all the spoilers from the preseason stuff. I'm gonna make a video every day for all of the daily spoilers. They tell you where you can get them, but they haven't shared yet like the percentages, and they're not going to release that till tomorrow, which I thought was kind of bizarre. Talk about prices, they're doing away with set boosters and draft boosters. I'll get to that in a minute in the next like slide or whatever. Prices go for $137 pre-order and $221 for the collector boxes. Here's the Murder bundle. They haven't put up the clue bundles, so I imagine they'll be around $44, just like its counterpart. Commander decks, there's gonna be 4 of them with this set. Each deck will come with 11 unique cards, and then there'll be 1 card shared amongst them, so there will be 45 in total of the 400 cards that are mechanically unique. I don't buy these. I haven't for years. It's probably because I have a pretty vast collection. I have everything that I could possibly need or want. Investing $150 to get 45 cards is not worth my time. Usually they seed the mechanically unique cards into the collector packs and the market gets flooded with them anyways. Probably get all 45 for a cheaper price than $144. Most of the mechanically unique cards are typically of weaker power level. They're usually not all that impressive. I think these decks mostly appeal to new players. The Naya one, the top left corner, it's going to be a cheating in big creatures, and it says big surprise on the cover of the box, so I wonder if it's going to be like a morph mechanic. You play a face down 2/2 and then it's like surprise, it's a big Sagu Mauler-esque thing. The Dimir deck is going to be a Surveil vampire deck. Surveil is you look at the top of your library and you could either leave it on top or pitch it to your graveyard. Bant deck is going to be a sea creature clue tribal kind of thing. I don't know if that tickles your fancy, but they'll be there. And then there's going to be the blame game.
What do you call this?
Careful, careful, that's a blame thrower.
A blame thrower. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry.
Your bad attitude is hurting this team!
Which is the Boros deck, and that's going to be a goad mechanic deck where you're forcing other people to attack each other, but not you. The titles fit the deck themes pretty nicely, but if you are a seasoned player like me, you don't want these. You haven't wanted these. The only time seasoned players should be buying the Commander products is when 30 to 40% of the deck is unique. Since these cards are going to be 89% reprints, I don't know how you could justify a $40 price tag. I don't know how they can come up with that. Don't pay it. It's a ripoff. Now, back to talking about the play boosters and how that came about. Mark Rosewater wrote this back in October, which I had no clue that he did, but I have been talking about the issues that having all these different product lines have been causing for consumers probably since Lord of the Rings. So months ago, I've been talking about how it's been driving us nuts that we don't know what versions of cards come in what product, and we have to do a significant amount of digging. And if you watch my channel, then you know what comes in the products that you're buying. But let's go over what he said as to why they're combining essentially the draft and the set boosters. The set boosters are eclipsing draft boosters. That's true, because you can get the cool looking versions in the set boosters as well, and the set boosters had a higher quantity of rares and mythics in them, so there was no reason to buy draft boosters other than for playing limited formats. Inventory problems. It's hard to move large quantities of products when you have multiple product versions. Have been years of bad supply chains, partially because you're doing too much. Confusion in the marketplace, already mentioned that. That's definitely been long overdue. Every booster buyer wasn't getting all the cool stuff. That's an interesting take. That's true. You could open boosters, set boosters that were total duds, and then you could open ones that are total fire. If they had interest in fixing that, that's kind of nice. And then this talks about what each pack's going to have. They say there's going to be up to 4 rares in total in a single pack, but they don't tell you the percentages yet. We're going to find out tomorrow. I imagine the percentages are going to be awful though. You're going to be guaranteed 1 rare / mythic. Random wild cards, they're likely going to be commons and uncommons. So you say these words, but historically the percentages are pretty awful. It'll be interesting what comes out of this tomorrow. You remember how I said that this came about in October? I have a theory that their desire to mash products together didn't come from dealing with all these issues that this very long document talks about. I think it has a lot to do with this. I think it has to do with the 1,100 staff members that were laid off from Wizards of the Coast. And the reason being is logistically, they'll be better suited to handle it. They're decreasing the print run, and they're also decreasing the amount of products. So it means there's less bodies required for shuffling products and disseminating out to everybody. And I suspect that people like Mark Rosewater knew that these layoffs were coming way before even this date. And it just seems way too convenient that in October, they announced they're combining products, and then December they lay off 1,100 people. I'm a little pessimistic about what's going to happen. I have some experience dealing with cutbacks. In my time in the military, I was in from 2011 to 2019, and around Obama's administration, there was the period of sequestration.
Our top priority must be to do everything we can to grow the economy and create good middle-class jobs. That's our top priority. That's our North Star. And drives every decision we make. And it has to drive every decision that Congress and everybody in Washington makes over the next several years. And that's why it's so troubling that just 10 days from now, Congress might allow a series of automatic, severe budget cuts to take place that will do the exact opposite.
Where they were just kicking out all the people with law-infringing records like DUIs and what have you, and then kicking out all the low performers and just cutting weapons and equipment, and then thus cutting jobs from people to kick out and save money budget-wise. What happened after they did that is they were still demanding the same quality and quantity of work, and there weren't enough bodies to do it. I think that's what's going to happen with Wizards of the Coast and their products. There's going to be some serious growing pains with this, because they just did Ravnica Remastered maybe 2 weeks ago, and then we have Murders at Karlov Manor less than a month away around the corner. And I think it's going to be a logistical nightmare. I hear some grumblings about getting products to stores with just Ravnica Remastered. I think it's going to amplify with every subsequent set, because they're still churning out sets like a machine, but they don't have the oil of manpower to grease those gears. I'll be very interested to see how things work out and buying things on the secondary market. I think there'll be a hike and then a downturn, and then it'll level off faster. Historically, a set will come out and prices just immediately fall, and they'll just do this for the first month. They'll level off, and then as the print slows down and eventually stops, it'll creep back up. I suspect there'll be less downturn and more of a leveling off kind of a thing. I don't know if that upsets people. I just know that something is going to give and something's going to piss people off. They're so untransparent about what's going on with Wizards. Ever since the layoffs, they have been disseminating information so much slowly. And I think it's partially because they don't have the staff to share that information. They have to make clip art, they have to write things, they have to proofread, they have to do all kinds of editorial stuff before they can disseminate information to all of us. And it's harder to do with fewer bodies. And that's just one thing that I could infer about all the layoffs, how it has affected Wizards. When you eliminate so many positions, it creates systemic problems in the business. For instance, I have a ticket with Secret Lair and Scalefast that has been ongoing for 2 months. I've never dealt with customer service for an easy to solve issue for 2 months before. It has to be because there's not enough bodies to do the job. And it's such a cascading effect. There's not enough of them to deal with all the problems coming from the sets. And the sets are having problems because there's not enough people doing quality control of their products. You know what I mean? It just keeps building up into this giant mound of shit.
Consequences.
I don't feel very confident about some of the things that's going to happen. I think this set's going to have a bit of an infamous reputation. Not just because it's Clue and it feels kind of weird, but due to logistics and the growing pains of Wizards of the Coast and what they're going through right now. That's all I have to say. I guess mark my words, see what happens tomorrow in terms of percentages and how secondary market unfolds. Everyone take care now. Bye.